What's going on, guys? Logan JYA DryKage here with DRYTRON 25.0, ready to go dominate the new format post-February 2023 ban list. Guys, I'm super excited to share this list with you. I've done a lot of theory crafting and a lot of testing over the past 24 hours to get this list ready for you, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. This very well may be the list that I take with me to the YCS in Las Vegas. So as always, guys, you know I thrive off your feedback. Let me know what you do differently in the comments down below. Without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let's dive into the deck profile, and don't forget, there'll be combos at the end, baby. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, DRYTRON 25.0, the list that's going to creep us right on back into the metagame, especially when I take something along these lines to YCS Vegas, the 3v3. You already know we're going to be leading the team to victory. I'm not going to go through the basics too much in this particular video, but I want you guys to stick around because we do have combo tutorials in store for you at the end. But without further ado, let's dive into the list. Alright guys, starting things off real simple, triple copies of Alpha, no explanation needed. Same thing goes for the triple copies of Zeta. Absolutely mandatory, you gotta max these guys out. Now I have beefed up Gamma to 2. We're playing 2 copies of Gamma and 1 copy of Delta. We are still maining Prosperity, so I see no reason to play more than the 1 Delta, but I have cut Beta in favor of a 2nd copy of Gamma. It does more in hand, and if we're expecting the Bestials to take a back seat, at least from the main decks of the majority of decks, it makes more sense to be playing a 2nd copy of Gamma instead of the Beta. It just does more overall. Moving on from there into our supporting cast, I've got the one Diviner, the OG, still sticking around. She's supporting us, you already know. And then we got our new boy Choju, absolutely mandatory. You're going to be a little intrigued to see the full extent of this build. Yes, we are playing Choju, but we're not playing Perfection in this one. And I'll explain why later in the combo tutorial. It's not necessarily needed, but yes, we are playing one Diviner and one Choju. Moving on to the continuation of the supporting cast, I've got the 1 copy of Lancia, as well as the 1 copy of Herald of Orange Light, both of which you already know, searchable off Ben 10, and key pieces of your end board. Again, you'll see when we do the combo tutorial, you're going to be searching out both of these boys, which is really going to set you up for success. Moving on from there, triple copies of Ben 10. Oh, my girl, so glad to see you at 3. It sucks when I play Master Duel and you're at 1. So glad that you're in this deck at 3. Konami, you did do something right. Okay, moving on from there, 1 copy of Natasha. Shout out to my boy CJ Daniels, who was trying so hard to get me to cut this card from my main deck. It's like, what does it do for you going first? It doesn't matter what it does for you going first. It does too much going second. You absolutely need to play Natasha. It is one of the most powerful cards in the deck. Follow that up with the 1 copy of Draconids. Still kind of mandatory in my opinion. We have, again, this list is at 42 cards right now, but very happy to keep the Draconids in here, as again, you already know sometimes it's very important to search this card into your hand so you can continue to ritual summon using it as a material, or you're using him as the big chungus to close out games, be an additional layer of interruption. And sometimes when you get drolled, you need a way to play around it. Draconids may be your answer. And finally, we got our win con. Oh yes, the Magician of Black Chaos Max, alright? You have to play this if you're doing the Dyna lock. If you didn't already see my full video on that particular combo, well, don't worry, because I'm going to show you how you do it, particularly with this build, and how to end on what I would consider to be one of the most optimal end boards you can do with a build like this. But again, if you disagree, you let me know in the comments. What strategy are you using for DRYTRON? It might not be Chaos Max, and I'd like to hear from you. Now, that doesn't round out all of our monsters. There's still one thing I really want to include here. That's our boy Lava Golem. Instead of maining Forbidden Droplets in this particular build, Kashtira is going to be the deck to beat, right? What does a great job of outing their board? That's our boy Lava Golem. It is one of the absolute best cards for dealing with that board. It deals with the Zone Locker, and it deals with the Arise Heart, and then we are free to kill them. It's that simple. So if you see it, you're absolutely winning that matchup. That does it for the monsters. Let's move on to the spells. Starting things off, we got 2 copies of DRYTRON Fafnir, the field spell. Follow that up with 2 copies of Nova. We're doing 2 and 2. I think I explained this earlier. The reason being, Fafnir is an additional form of interruption. If you leave a face-up DRYTRON name on the board, it does let you level modulate on your opponent's turn, which actually can be a real form of interruption against Kashtira, making their guys a 6 instead of a 7, or a 5 instead of a 7, whatever it ends up being. They can't overlay with it. It's that simple, okay? So it does make sense to play the field spells. Moving on, 2 copies of Medionis. This is super mandatory in this build. given how we're deciding to play it. Again, you saw the Choju in here earlier. This is going to be one of the cards you search off of it. So one of them gets searched for Zeta, the other gets searched for Choju. Keep that in mind. Moving on from there, triple copies of Cyber Emergency. You already know it's just additional copies of your favorite names. Triple copies of Preparation of Rites. Get your favorite card out of deck, our girl Ben 10, and sometimes when you're really cheeky, you're adding back your ritual spell. Feels pretty good. And I did already mention this earlier, triple copies of the Pot of Prosperity for maximized consistency, as well as digging for those side deck cards in games 2 and 3. You already know it makes a lot of sense to play this card. Here's a card you may question. I'm not sure if you're going to question or not. Let me know what you think about this. Triple copies of Book of Eclipse in the main deck. Like I said, Kashtira is going to be the deck to beat, and Book of Eclipse is still a very easy way to beat it. Now, yes, this card can get Ash Blossomed. It's not as good as Lava Golem for breaking the board for our intents and purposes. When you Lava Golem them, you can end up stealing the Lava Golem later with Natasha and killing them with it. With Book of Eclipse, it's not as optimal to steal the set monsters. If anything, they're going to clog up your own board, but it does still deal with all the problems, and we can very easily set up the Dynamon lock if we are unable to kill them and put them in a sticky situation. But I am teching in the 3 Book of Eclipse in the main. Let me know what you guys think about this. Again, we need to stress test it a little bit more, but in testing and in theory, it makes a lot of sense to counter the Kashtiras this way. Last card in the main is the 1 copy of Called By. If you see it, when they try and shifter you, it feels pretty good. Moving on to the extra deck, we got, of course, 2 copies of Moy Beta Fafnir, the greatest Exceed of all time. That's not true. That honor belongs to Lavable Chain. But this one is still really, really good. It's got an effect that's reminiscent of Lavable Chain, you already know. And let's not forget about its secret effect, you know, the one that negates spells and traps. It'll come up a lot, especially if you're playing against a trap-heavy deck like Labyrinth, which may actually see play. So you're going to want to modify your end board, especially in games 2 and 3. When you see the side deck, you're going to see what I'm talking about to deal with trap-based decks. But we don't know what the meta is necessarily going to shape up to be like yet. I'm just planning it out ahead of time. Right now, of course, though, I don't need to explain to Moy Beta. 1 copy of Downer Magician to go with our friend Zeus, baby. We are playing 2 Zeuses. You have to play 2 Zeuses because of the Kashtira matchup. If you're only playing 1, you just made their decision super easy for what they're going to rip out of your extra deck. Basically, when you can't kill them, but you're trying to clean the house out, Zeus is going to be your main means of doing so. We have to play 2 copies to kind of accomplish that mission, okay? Moving on from there, 1 copy of Beatrice, absolutely mandatory. You're going to find this coming up in many, many, many of your combo lines, and even when it's not a part of your main combo line, it's a very important card to have to access things like additional names, your Chaos Max. Sky is the limit, let's put it like that. Moving on from there into the Link Monsters, 2 copies of Dynamon. Same logic applies here as the Zeus. You don't want to give them a very free option for what they can hit out of your extra deck. That's why I'm choosing to play the 2 Dynamons. In case you can't kill them, sometimes you're going to have to fall back on your Chaos Max lock play. Therefore, you need the 2nd copy of Dynamon in case they are ripping into your extra deck. Moving on, 1 copy of the Relinquished Anima. This is our choice Link 1 in this particular build. You already know my logic on it. And with us main decking Lava Golem, it makes even more sense. 1 copy of IP Masquerena to go along with our friend Unicorn. Not the only card you can summon off it though. You may even consider going for our friend Boral Sword to clean house when the turn rolls back to you if you end up ending on the IP. It's a little bit of a reach to end on IP on a standard end board, but it is theoretically possible if you have enough extension. And then the next card, this is a standard piece of the standard end board, is the Herald of Mirage Light. Shout out to Justin Singh. It's very similar logic to how he built his build back when Vanity's Ruler was the main strategy. Right now, I don't think Vanity's Ruler is the main strategy, and I'm going to tell you why. I think it makes a lot more sense to go for the Dynamon lock because it loses to less. People may be playing Dark Ruler no more. We don't want to get hit with that. Our Vanity's Ruler would lose to it in games 1 and 3 if we don't see certain side deck cards. So I think Mirage Light is a correct answer. It also helps cover the thing that your Dynamon is not covering. So you have all monster effects covered with your Dynamon Chaos Max lock, and then Mirage Light provides you that 2nd layer of insulation to negate a spell or trap. Moving on from there, we are still playing the Diviner, so we play both options in the extra deck, the Entis and the Arclight. It is still mandatory, even though the Diviner is only at 1. It makes way too much sense to not play these guys. Now let's wrap things up with the side deck. Guys, I have to tell you, the side deck needs some work, and there's some very important cards I would add in if I had them in hand. I'll tell you about them as we go through. But here's one thing that wouldn't change. The other 2 copies of Lancia. If you're going second against Cash, bring these in. If you see it, it's great. Even if you rip it as a 6 card, it's not that bad because you line up your orange late and there you go, you got a free monster negate if you need it. It's pretty darn good. You stop some of their most oppressive plays when you hit them with this on turn 0. I think there's no reason not to be siding the additional copies of Lancia. And who knows, if you run into that Flunderies player without their barrier statue, that's pretty funny. You are also covered for them. Moving on from there, I only own 1 right now, so this should be at 3. This should be at 3, but right now I only own 1 of the Triple Talents Thrust, okay? So right now I'm only playing 1, but you should be playing 3 of this, and it would change the side deck a lot if I had all 3. Again, just putting this out there, but since I only have the 1, I am playing it, but you would want to play this at 3. And so one of the cards that would get subbed out for it pretty easily, I would cut 2 of the Tactics Talents for 2 more thrusts, possibly. That's one option, is to cut 2 of these and put in the other 2 thrusts, and then you can use the thrust to theoretically search the Talents. But Talents is another going first or second card. It's really good coverage, and it's very generic coverage. Again, it's a reactive card, but it's a really strong reactive card. It makes sense to be side decking at least 1 copy of Talents if you've got triple thrust. If not, I'm doing the triple Talents to kind of circumvent in the meantime. Moving on from there, I've got 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Listen, Runic could be a real deck, and our main strategy does not do a whole heck of a lot against them. Therefore, we need to be ready with the side deck. At the very least, I wanted to commit 2 slots to Cosmic Cyclones to deal with the Runic Fountain. Next, I've got 2 copies of Dark Ruler No More. I'm not sure if these would be in my final side deck. The one card I really want to play in the side, I have to put this out there right now, it's very important, is Gravekeeper's Engraving. One deck I really fear is the Branded. Branded Despia playing the Bestials. That is going to be a massive threat, I believe, going into the new format, and that's why I think it might be worthwhile to side deck triple copies of the Gravekeeper's Engraving for when you're going first. That, or even if you're going second, because that stops the Bestials, and that's really the main thing that you want to stop with that. You just want to declare the effect that cards can't be banished, and then you're Bane chilling, okay? It protects your effects in the graveyard from the Bestials. That's really what I'm saying when it comes to Gravekeeper's Engraving. So I would definitely be playing it if I had it. I don't have it right now. In the interim, I'm doing the Dark Ruler No More, which is still an insanely strong card for clearing out boards. Even against Kashtira, it stops the Arise Heart, which is the biggest threat on their board, because if we at least blank that card, we can theoretically go for a Zeus play. Moving on to the next cards is triple copies evenly matched. Again, this is another one that you could cut to 1 if you have triple copies of Thrust, and then that gives you more room for the engravings. But right now, since I don't have that, I am doing the triple copies of the evenly. Another deck I don't want you guys to sleep on too much is the Labyrinth deck. Again, I talked about this a little bit earlier. Trap decks may make a resurgence with less Ishizu Shufflers and possibly less Bestials in the meta. So we got to stay ready for them, okay, guys? Just keep that in mind. We are doing the triple copies of evenly matched, but you could cut this down to 1 if you had the thrust. Another cards I want to give a quick honorable shout out / mention to. Again, if I had more thrusts, I would probably be siding a single copy of Dimensional Barrier. And the reason for that being is if I eat too many hand traps, or worse comes to worse, I get hit with a shifter or something like that, I can use the thrust to get me into a Dimensional Barrier in the Kashtira matchup, and then I can set this and lock them out of Exceed something on their turn, which is not a bad option. So if you have triple thrust and you get hit with a shifter, this is a circumventing counter mechanism, for lack of a better term. It also is quite applicable against Branded as well. You can do the same thing if you get hit with a Bestial, and then you can set the Dimensional Barrier and hit them with it on their turn. And the last card I want to give an honorable shout out and mention to before we get the last 2 side deck cards is Medora. I'm not playing this in the main, you might have already noticed, and I'm not necessarily sure how much of a threat tier is going to be going forward. We're really going to have to see how the meta shapes out to be, how many people still have the cojones to play it. But right now I am keeping it out of the build, but this is another card you can consider siding or maining depending on how the meta shapes out, because you can easily send it off Beatrice. Now the last 2 cards, I've kept you in suspense for this one in the side deck. This one I really like. We've got the Magic Key package in the side, okay? So listen, if Droplet sees play, which I don't think it will, But droplets is the one thing that stops your Dynamon lock. When you see the full combo, you're going to see it's pretty well insulated, with the exception of bestial hand traps when you're going through the regular combo. But things like board breakers and blowouts, which a lot of people are going to be playing to be prepared against Kashtira, you don't care about. The only card you really care about is Forbidden Droplets. And how do we answer that? We answer it with Magic Key unlocking. And something really cool that I discovered just yesterday is an Alpha Zeta line that ends on both the Dynamon lock backed up with Magic Key unlocking. I will show you that as the second combo in this video. But that does it for the deck profile. Let's get into the combo tutorial. The first one is going to be standard Alpha Zeta line game 1, and the second is what I'm going to be calling the game 3 combo line for when you're going first and you side in for going first, which is using the Magic Key package. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright homies, I already promised you we're going to do an Alpha Zeta line to show you the full combo end board. Again, I'm not going to pay mind to interruptions in this particular build. I'm just going to show you what the ideal end board looks like and why it is so good. But without further ado, let's dive into it. I'm just going to show you every single step you need to know. And of course, we start off with Alpha Pitch Zeta, grab Ben 10, Zeta Pitch Ben 10, summon itself, grab Meteonis, and then Ben 10 effect is going to search you Choju here, okay? Choju is going to be your first search off of Ben 10, very important. Next, we'll overlay 2 for Moy Beta. Moy Beta effect will then Foolish Burial. We are going to send Gamma, of course. No surprises here, no modifications from the usual. I think this should all be looking relatively standard. Next, we go Meteonis, activate, detach off Moy Beta, summon back that Ben 10, like so. Next, we're going to Tribute Summon that Choju, just like that, over the Ben 10, so we get Ben 10 effect as well as Choju's. You can choose to chain block in whichever way you wish. Choju is going to search you both Meteonis and Ben 10, and then the Ben 10 Engrave is going to search you in Orange Light, like so. Next, you're going to go Gamma Effect Engrave, pitch off the Ben 10 from your hand, summoning back itself as well as whatever you detached off Moy Beta, doesn't really matter. We'll go Ben 10's effect in the graveyard, get you another search. This time I'll grab Artifact Lancia. After that, we can go effect of Meteonis Engrave, reduce the attack points of Zeta to add it back to your hand. Then you can activate Meteonis, detach off Moy Beta, summon back the Ben 10 from grave, and we're going to immediately overlay it with the Choju to summon your Beatrice. Beatrice effect, then we can activate it, detach, and this is what's going to give us access to the Chaos Max. Now mind you, if you open up an extra copy of Ben 10 or a preparation of rights, you can instead search the Chaos Max off of your Choju effect, and then you can reserve this Beatrice effect send for an additional name like Delta. But in this situation, like I said, we're doing it vanilla style, okay? I'm just showing you how to do it using the basic strategies. So from here, our next step is going to be overlaying Gamma and Zeta like so. Summon your second copy of Moy Beta. It's actually pretty important to do so, and you'll see why, because we're going to go Meteonis effect, detach 2 off Moy Beta, and this is what's going to summon back the Dark Magician of Black, Magician of Black Chaos Max to set up the Dynamon lock. But we're not done yet. We're going to take the 2 copies of Moy Beta, same type and attribute, not tokens, go into the Herald of Mirage Light on top. Like I said, that gives us our spell and trap coverage, and then we go for the Dynamon right here. So the lock is set up, and although we have an additional monster on field, so we're not playing around Bestials that way, what did we search earlier in our turn? Oh, that's right, Artifact Lancia, which means if they top deck a Bestial, we got it covered. It doesn't even make a darn difference. So this is the standard Alpha Zeta end board for this particular build. It may not look like much, but this is a full blanket lock, lingering effect that locks your opponent out of monster effects. If you don't know, during their draw phase, you tribute Dynamon. That lets you summon back the Dark Magician, or Magician of Black Chaos Max, and then you can immediately tribute itself, or the Mirage Light if you prefer. I wouldn't, but you tribute itself, and then they are locked out of monster effects for the rest of the turn. Another cool thing about Mirage Light is it has a floating effect, which can then let you add back things like Ben 10 from your grave back to your hand when it dies. That's the vanilla end board. Let me show you one more, like I said earlier, the game 3 going first combo. Here we go. Alright guys, for the final combo of this video, I'm going to show you the Game 3 style combo. This is after you side in your Magic Keys, how to access both the Magic Key unlocking live, as well as your Dynamon lock just off of Alpha Zeta. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Alright guys, usual deal, you already know how we start. Alpha, pitch, Zeta, grab Ben 10, Zeta, pitch, Ben 10, summon itself, grab Medionis. Ben 10 effect here is actually going to search a second copy of Ben 10. How much does it matter? Not necessarily sure, but you're going to see as we go through. Overlay those two for Moy Beta effect will send Gamma. This is all looking pretty familiar so far, right? No surprises here, you can't be shocked. Medionis effect, detach off Moy Beta, summon back Ben 10 from grave like so. Then we can use Gamma's effect in the graveyard. We're actually going to sack that Ben 10 from hand like this, summon back itself and the Zeta from grave, triggering Ben 10 to give us a free search, and this is where we'll grab our Choju. Then we'll use Medionis' effect in the graveyard, reducing Gamma to add it back to our hand like so. Then we can tribute summon over the Gamma we just reduced to summon out the Choju and use its effect. This will grab us Medionis as well as the Beta Buster. That's right, Beta Buster is back. No betas allowed here. We're going to overlay the Choju and the Ben 10 like this, go for our Beatrice, and then Beatrice effect will Foolish. You already know where this is going. We're going to send our Magician of Black Chaos Max, actually got the name right this time, into the graveyard just like that. Next, you can go Medionis, detach off Moy Beta, and send the Beta Buster from hand to grave to summon back the Chaos Max from the graveyard just like that. We'll take the Chaos Max as well as the Moy Beta, link them off, go off into the Dynamond on the top. After that, we can use our last remaining ritual summon from the turn, go Medionis, take off that Zeta, summon back the Beta Buster from grave, and then Beta Buster effect will search from our deck the magical card, Magic Key Unlocking, which is a counter trap that stops any spell and traps our opponents might try and hit us with, particularly Forbidden Droplets, which is the one card that can actually stop this combo. So we set that face down, and then when we pass turn to the opponent, we can of course do the usual deal, tag out the Dynamond, summon back the Magician of Black Chaos Max, and then also we can use Beatrice's effect if we have it in the deck, which this time around I don't. We could send Medora, or we can send any additional name. It doesn't really matter, it's just free advantage. And then we can sack off the Beatrice, and we're Bing chilling. We got 2 ritual monsters on the field, and the Magic Key Unlocking set to stop any spell and trap interruptions, so that means they're locked out of monster effects, and we've got a spell or trap negate counter trap that cannot be stopped with shenanigan type cards. So this is an insane build, guys. I'm honestly pretty proud of this one. I'm really looking forward to see what you think about it. Is this going to be the way to play DRYTRON for the YCS in Las Vegas? Let me know in the comments down below, but that's all I got for you guys today. Logan JYA signing off. Have a great day. I'll see you beautiful people in the next video. Peace.